What's up guys, Bluddshed here. Now some of you know earlier this week I took a little trip to Irvine and I went to Diablo 3 Influencer Summit. Basically the event was to give feedback on the Necromancer and Diablo 3 in general. We got to talk to the devs and ask them questions and just kind of let them know where our heads are at, I guess, in the game and our thoughts and opinions basically. I got a chance to actually play the Necromancer. They have the same build they actually had at PAX, which was the Melee Mancer. They showed off the skills. We did a video of that here on the channel. So let's go ahead and run through some of the bullet points that I wrote down. A lot of this stuff is already known, but maybe it'll give you guys a deeper understanding. And I got to play it, so I'm kind of excited. Necromancer is one of those classes that's going to be extremely varied. They should have 4 sets at launch, one focusing on pets, one focusing on blood, the blood skills, my favorite, one focusing on melee, which is the one that we saw, and one maybe like a mid-range caster set, like a bone spear set. So this is really cool. It allows the Necromancer to have varied gameplay across the board, and apparently that's how their skills and abilities and passives, from what they're telling us, are going to mirror. They just want to give us a bunch of tools and just let us build and kind of figure things out on our own. They're not specifically designing for the meta. They're designing for fun is pretty much what they're saying. We know they have 3 resources. Okay, so they have Essence, which is you can see the little blue essence in the corner, and then they have corpses on the screen. Once you use a corpse skill, they go away. You need more corpses. It has a giant 60-yard radius typically. So the final numbers aren't final. You know what I mean? This is just the build, the current build that they're on. And then health. So the blood skills use health and things like that. So there's lots of different resources. I really love the health mechanic, like Vladimir in League of Legends. Blood Rush, Blood Nova feels really responsive. Super fun to use. I can see that being an explosive blast blood build, you know what I mean? I can see that being a speed build. It looks really fun to play, and it's physical based. Now the blood golem did feel like a gargantuan though, and I did express that to the devs. It's one of the few pets you can't control, so you can't control the blood golem, but he does explode. I also gave feedback that I think the blood golem should pull enemies to him and then explode. That would give them more CC or grouping up mobs, kind of like the Crusaders pony or the Monk's implosion, things like that. So that's the feedback that I gave him. I was pretty vocal during the whole event. I think I asked a big chunk of the questions in my group specifically. They did break us up in little groups. Another question I asked the devs was convention of elements. I've only seen physical. What's the deal? They confirmed that there's going to be 3 elements for the Necromancer. So right away, red flags are raised. The convention of elements is probably going to be hella strong. So of course I asked them, how are you going to balance that since 3 elements, you're going to have a 33% uptime on your convention. They said they're going to add more rings and they don't want to sacrifice the funness of the class or the thematic of the class to just for one item in the game. They don't want to just balance it. So they might add cooler rings that make us replace convention. So there's a possibility, but as it stands right now, it's a little red flag. Right now they have Frost, and it's more of think of it like an attack damage ice spell, like a frozen spear, right? It just explodes on impact. Physical, of course, which is blood and things like that. And then Blight. Blight is a version of poison that doesn't really poison. It's almost just another physical attack spell, but it's in the form of poison, like Blight. So that's kind of cool. So it's basically, Blight, Frost, and physical. I like the themes. It does feel very serious. The Necromancer doesn't have any jokey abilities from what I can tell. And I do like that. Stick with the cool undead theme. The revivability seems to be really, really short. They don't want any kind of exploits, it looks like, or anything like that. The essence resource mechanic in the bottom right corner, the little baby blue, there's no passive region right now, so you need to attack. You need to have a generator or possibly some legendary property. But as of right now, there's 0 region on it. What else? Corpses. Corpses seem to last forever, but they stack really low. I asked them if they were intended. Right now, I've only seen maybe 10 to 13 corpses on the screen. And even if I gather in 100 mobs, only 13 corpses will be there around that number. And they said that's intended. So I guess it gives them a way to balance it and control the server lag and it gives them like a balance point, not just, filling the screen up with corpses. It has to be balanced, I suppose. So in addition to playing the Necromancer, I got to meet some of the developers. They were all very cool. They all seem like gamers. They talk about games. They seem passionate about games in general, which is really awesome to hear. I talked to Travis Day. He sat down at our lunch table. We got to talk about games and things like that. I told him, I was giving him feedback when we were trying to eat lunch, so I apologize, Travis. I'm a passionate as well, I guess. The whole time I'm trying to, like, Bluddshed, don't just keep badgering them with questions. I did ask a lot of hard-hitting questions, and we'll get into that at the end of the video. But yeah, the devs, 10 out of 10, would have a beer with again. I also got to meet other streamers, content creators, people from all over the world, from Latin America to Korea to EU. The EU bros are pretty chill as well. I got to meet Riker for the first time and 9ball. 9ball runs the WESTMARCH Workshop podcast. I'll put a link down below if you guys have never heard of it. It's a cool podcast, and anything for the community that helps drive the community forward. It's a very positive thing. I should talk about it more on stream. Good guys over there. Leviathan as well runs the podcast with them, and he's a streamer. So you guys know Leviathan. I post him all the time. Riker seemed really genuine and a cool bro. He seems to really care about Diablo and the community in general. So I'm a streamer and YouTuber just like Riker does the same kind of thing. So it's good to relate to people in your field and kind of bounce ideas off each other, and have somebody to relate to is always a positive thing. So one thing that they did allude to is that they're looking at ways to reduce the lag in Diablo in general. So they're going to lower spell effects from your party. So like they're going to leave things that you need to see, like say Necromancer curses. You need to know if the mobs are cursed or not. That way you get the benefit from that. But a lot of other abilities like skeletons are going to be phased out further. And they're going to cut a lot of spell effects just to reduce game lag. And since they're adding the Necromancer with all kinds of summons and revive abilities and corpse explosions, they're going to look at ways to make the servers better, which is always a great thing. Overall, my time with the Blizzard employees, with everyone, was top-notch. Now, what did Blood ask? Okay, like Blood, you have a chance to sit down with the developers. What the hell did you talk to them about, Blood? Well, let me tell you, man. I didn't pull any punches. I asked them, can we counter map hacks in the game by just showing pylons on the Rift in general? That way we don't have to worry about any people doing nefarious activities. They'll just be there, and it'll be a way to make it fair for everyone while pushing greater rifts in general. And they seem to just kind of listen and take notes, and they didn't say anything. They don't talk about that kind of stuff. But I got my point across, right? A little cringe, but they seem to care. I asked them to nerf Paragon from 5 points per stat down to 1 or 2 per stat, because, they don't want to cap Paragon. They seem adamant about capping Paragon, so I asked them to nerf Paragon. They said they have no current changes, but again, they seem to hear me, and they seem to write something down. Appreciate it. They seem to care a little bit. I told the devs, I said, hey, can we balance the linear maps versus the open maps to a 50-50 ratio? That way, when we go into a rift, it can favor people that like open maps. 50% versus people that prefer linear maps based on your class and your spec. It might be more efficient, like a Shadow Mantle or a multi-shot DH might want different maps. I asked them to balance it to like 50-50, so it's just balanced across the board. And I asked them to do that with Rift Guardian. So when Rift Guardian spawns, it has a 50% chance to have ads and a 50% chance to have no ads. That way it kind of favors all the classes. They did say they are looking into that. They just recently did a buff to it. It's still pretty low for the balance from my testing, but they said they're looking into it, and they also said that they might possibly, nothing's confirmed, this is just like spitballing, right? But they said they'd look into maybe adding ads to all the Rift Guardians if it severely damages the Necro, because one thing about the Necromancer is he does more damage with ads because he gets corpses, and it's a big mechanic of his class. So if you get a Rift Guardian with no ads, your Necro's pretty much shit out of luck. So they're looking into it. They seem to hear everything, and they're probably testing it internally. A lot of the things was just like, spitball conversations, Blood just going at them with the hard-hitting questions. I did fight. Okay, I did fight for the red beam, okay, for primals. I did say, hey man, primals need a red beam. I want them to feel special. I want them to have a cool effect. Something. Can we identify a primal when we hear a freaking lion's roar? I said this, by the way, in the little boardroom, right? I'm like, can we get something to make Primal stand out and to create the hype factor? Because right now, it's just like, oh, there's a Primal, you know? So I did fight for it. They seem to care, again, a lot of, like, they seem either they're writing down, like who's this guy Blood on a piece of paper, or they're writing down what I'm saying. But I definitely was trying for you guys. The Necro UI Necromancer, like her face looks like a butterface. Like she has a boxed face in the UI. The character model itself, top notch, beautiful. I love it. This is gonna be my favorite model in the game. But her actual little character portrait on the UI, I complained about it, and there was some people from other countries. They're like, yeah, like it doesn't look attractive. But they said it's probably not the final art, and they're gonna, look into it. They're just like, it's just like the temporary art. So hopefully it doesn't stay that way, because she has kind of a boxy Rocky Balboa type face going on. I don't know. I also asked them about re-rolling primals. I said there's a thing going around the community where we thought it would be a really cool idea is if we take a primal, put it in the cube, use the Law of Cool, which re-rolls the primal, if it could maintain its primal status. That way we can not have to worry about getting a shit primal, because I personally have gotten a lot of shit primals on the PTR. I've tested them for a month straight, and just rolling constantly, getting data and all that stuff. And I get a lot of life regen on my weapons, a lot of vitality on my weapons, and the classes I play particularly don't use that. And they seem to generally not have heard that before or something. And then they wrote it down and they're like, yeah, we'll look into it. I'm like, that way the primals feel more special. They have more an identity, all the same stuff I've been spewing. So they do seem to generally care about my crazy ideas. I was hitting them over and over again with some of the big questions. It was a Necromancer summit, and I was just like, this is my chance. This might be my one chance, man. I'm going to, pretty much speak for the community and do it. So we'll see if any of these do change. It seems, again, I keep saying it, that they do care. And they were like, yeah, man, that's a good idea, this and that. So I definitely felt like they were going above and beyond what they would do. So possibly, man, some of these changes might go through. If the red beam comes through, I could take all the credit for that. Okay, we'll call it Blood Appreciation Day. Anyways, guys, that's going to be all for me today. If you're on Patreon, I'll probably do a longer form version of this and just kind of go through my day-to-day activities, what we did, who I talked to, a little bit more detail than the video, because the video is already running pretty long for my standard. But yeah, if you guys are on Patreon, it'll be up hopefully before the season comes out, or maybe the day of. And that is going to be all for me today. Big shout out to the patrons, to my Twitch subs, to everyone that supports and likes my videos. And this is Bluddshed, and I'm out of here. Peace.